What's up everybody, welcome back. Today we are talking about Darth Revan counters. We will cover teams that will work, teams that won't work, and we'll talk about teams that you can use to cover the various Darth Revan compositions we see out there. You have stuff like Scion, Nihilist, Thrawn, Night Sisters. There's a bunch of different Darth Revan teams out there, and some of them work better than others, and some of them have certain counters to them. So we will cover all those, and also talk about some of the major factions that really hold no place as counters for Darth Revan, and they shouldn't come as any surprise if you know the mechanics to Darth Revan. So we will go ahead and cover all that, but let's go ahead and start with one you wouldn't quite expect, and that is General Grievous. So with this General Grievous team, you have a lineup of Grievous, B2, IG-88, BB-8, and T3-M4, and you're going to have the Zeta for T3, which gives the droids a defense penetration, and BB-8 is going to act as your tank for this team. He's going to constantly taunt. B2 will drive up the turn meter on General Grievous, but pretty much what's going to happen here is you're just going to supercharge Grievous and allow his AoE to just completely melt the enemy team. Eventually, BB-8 will die because he's taunting, and, you know, this team will destroy tanks outright. So BB-8 gets killed, and at that point, the unique Zeta on General Grievous activates, which resets his cooldowns and gives him a bonus turn, and then he's just going to rip with an AoE. It will completely destroy the other team in seconds. Now, of course, this team will not work against most of your compositions out there, especially something with Thrawn and Scion. They're forced to constantly target Scion, and it really counters this team overall. But if you're facing a full regular Sith Empire team, General Grievous being able to destroy that team, it's actually pretty fun. Now, another team we decided to try was, of course, Ewoks, and, you know, it was able to defeat Jedi Revan when he first came out, and then C-3PO made it a little more possible and helped really reduce the mod requirements a little bit, but unfortunately, that is not going to carry over to Darth Revan. The Corrupted Battle Meditation with Fallen Bastila prevents you from landing debuffs once you have that debuff on your Ewoks, so the Expose through C-3PO will not land if you have Corrupted Battle Meditation, and overall, the main mantra of Ewoks is death by 1,000 cuts, but a Darth Revan team is so quick and so powerful on the overall damage, it will just completely wipe out your team. The Death Mark prevents Ewok Elder from reviving Chirpa, and you can't get that in Mass Assist either, which then also adds a lot of exposes, so an Ewok team overall, definitely not one you guys want to use here. And next up, we have Imperial Troopers. Oh, Imperial Troopers. Not exactly one you expected to find here, but did you really expect to find Grievous on here either? With this team, and big shout out to Jackson for trying this out, he defeated two different combinations of Darth Revan teams with Imperial Troopers. The first one he defeated was a Darth Nihilist and Darth Scion combination, where he went straight for Fallen Bastila, but talking upon it further with him, if the Zeta was on HK for this one, where Loyalty to the Maker Zeta blocks the bonus turn meter, he could have gone straight for HK-47, killed him, and then the unique would no longer block from gaining that bonus turn meter, and then he could quickly pick off the rest of the team. So even if you do have an HK-47 on the enemy team, you can knock out HK-47, though pre-taunts with Sith Trooper could make that quite a bit harder for you, though it's still by far possible to do it. So with this team, you quickly knock out HK-47 if he has a Zeta. If not, this is pretty much a reason why you should get the Zeta for Loyalty to the Maker, because an Imperial Trooper team being able to cut right through your Darth Revan team, you could easily block that with the Zeta and a pre-taunt at the same time. So if you are fighting some sort of team that does not have a Sith Trooper or another pre-taunter, and you can go straight for HK-47 and quickly knock him out, you can quickly run through a Darth Revan team. But also, the Talzin zombie team, which has crept up over the past 24 hours or so, obviously, Imperial Troopers are going to cut right through it. I mean, you have Night Sister Zombie on there. Night Sister Zombie gets crushed under the AoE attacks from an Imperial Trooper team, and there's so much bonus turn meter going on here that even with the HK Zeta on there, he was still able to cut right through the Night Sister Zombie Talzin team with Darth Revan. So Imperial Troopers, definitely another team that you guys can use if for something like Grand Arena or Territory Wars, and you find a Darth Revan team that's vulnerable to Imperial Troopers, I highly recommend you guys try this team. So following that, we have JTR, Jedi Training Ray teams, and this one does not work really well pretty much at all against Darth Revan teams, and the simple thing is because of the Corrupted Battle Meditation, just like how Ewoks can't land Expose once that corrective battle meditation gets on your JTR characters, even if they land critical hits, they can't really land those exposes. You know, the battle meditation makes them, prevents them from landing those effects, just like with Fracture and Mark with Thrawn and Jedi Revan. So not being able to land those exposes means you can't boost your turn meter, means you really lose out on a huge chunk of damage that these JTR teams do anyways. And you do have the initial turn meter boost with BB-8 and the droids. We even tried throwing in L3 to see if L3 would work better, but it's just not good enough. You can kill 1 or 2 characters on the enemy Darth Revan team, but even with that, you still cannot really win. So a JTR team, by far, is one you do want to avoid trying against Darth Revan teams. The overall lack of exposes, the fact you can't remove turn meter with the Zeta on the Darth Revan lead, the Mind Tricks doesn't really work, so there's really no way to make a JTR team work, because all these debuffs and the prevention of the exposes, it really screws the JTR team overall. Now next up we have a clip from NVR24. He tried out a Zeta Palpatine lead against the Darth Revan team, and this one actually works. It's a very Pyrrhic victory in that you will lose quite a few characters, but you can win, and the main reason for this is because of the ferocity stacks constantly fading on the enemy team. With the Zeta on Palpatine, anytime that a debuff fades from the enemy, your Sith and Empire allies will gain 5% turn meter. Well, after a couple of turns, your Sith Empire enemies will start losing 5 stacks of ferocity at the end of each turn, and that can also be compounded by Force Storm adding another 5 stacks on, so you can easily gain 25% turn meter for all of your Sith and Empire characters at the end of each Sith Empire's characters. Sith and Empire, there's a lot of confusion on those names, but pretty much the constant fading of ferocity on the Darth Revan team will jack up and fuel the turn meter on the Palpatine teams, and that is the important mechanic here. You can use those fading stacks of ferocity to really make your team go fast, help keep things competitive. So you can use Thrawn with this OG Nightmare team with Scion and Nihilus as well, under Vader and Palpatine, and overall this team will be able to let you win against the OG teams for Sith Empire, though we haven't really tried against other compositions out there, but as long as you have that Darth Revan lead, you should be able to remain pretty competitive. Now, since we're focusing on Sith leaders here, we might as well talk about Darth Traya. Darth Traya can defeat Darth Revan teams, however, it is very difficult, very narrow, and it's kind of a nerve-wracking fight. You're going to lose a lot of characters, she just really can't keep up. She will get death marked pretty quickly, and you will lose the ability to use Isolate to your advantage once she dies from that death mark. You can't bring her back. So you do have Darth Revan, you can usually make him be the taunter for your team, as long as he doesn't get buff immunity, which won't last very long because there's so much potency on the enemy team. But you can use Thrawn on your team for his Fracture, also use the cooldown increases from Nihilus to your advantage, but methodically annihilate the correct characters. So like if you can get rid of Darth Revan very quickly with Annihilate, that'll be of a huge bonus to you, and this will allow you to slowly pick off the enemy team, but do remember they'll also wreck you very quickly. So against a Darth Revan team, it's highly recommended you skip this one, because it's just not really something that's too viable. We had several losses before we got a win with the Darth Traya team, so it's definitely not one I highly recommend using. Let's go to an old school Jedi one, and for this one, Bastila Shan lead. Now, there's 2 ways you can use this against the Talzin Night Sister zombie teams out there, and also against any teams that don't have an HK-47 Zeta on loyalty to the Maker. The Zeta on HK-47 will block the bonus turn meter gain for Bastila at the start of a fight, but one other thing to note is that her bonus tenacity will get countered by the stacking ferocity on a Darth Revan team. However, this can be used to your advantage, especially against the Talzin team, because you can resist the plague from Mother Talzin, preventing the healing and the buffs, so you are able to cleanse it and heal through it, especially if you bring someone like Hermit Yoda on your team. So using a Bastila Shan team and throwing Jedi Knight Revan into an ally slot instead of as a leader, that is actually a very interesting team. I never really thought I'd see Bastila become a lead and have Jedi Knight Revan be second to her, but I'd have to say this one looks pretty solid. So use this team for ones out there where you don't have that Xenon HK-47, but also you could probably find some good use for this in some of the other teams too. Now with Jedi Knight Revan, you also do have the ability to do that mass assist with his mark, and you can use that with the bonus damage for everybody having protection up to quickly take out someone like HK-47 as well. So you do have that, and you can also use the mass assist from General Kenobi and Master's Training with Hermit Yoda. Hermit Yoda's Master's Training can also cleanse debuffs on you as well. So there's plenty of stuff to consider with a Bastila team with Jedi Knight Revan somewhere in the mix too. Also throw in that Hermit Yoda to really give yourself some nice survivability, some healing, and also some nice buffs with the Master's Training buff. Now next up we have CLS teams, and we already know, it's been well established, that CLS teams soundly beat your typical Sith Empire team. It's really not a contest, it's pretty easy to win. However, we have found that if you are running a CLS team, you should probably avoid the lineups that have Thrawn and Darth Scion in them, because that one can actually wreck you pretty quickly, especially with a speedy Scion. The Darth Scion will go soon after Insanity from Darth Revan, and then he'll increase cooldowns, put debuffs on everybody, and force everybody to attack him, so that can ruin your day pretty quickly. And of course, Grand Admiral Thrawn can also fracture someone like Chewie or CLS or even 3PO and allow you to quickly pick off characters on the team, not have to worry about too much damage from that team. So that is a team you do want to avoid using here, but if you do want to fight a Mother Talzin zombie variation, you can actually switch things up a little bit. And a big shout out to Turbo Joe for finding this one. He uses a CLS team with Han, Chewie, and then he throws in Visas Mar and also throws in L3. Then Visas, she can constantly assist and cleanse and heal your team. She also gives your guys defense penetration. L3 can tank and give your team some leniency from the attacks from the Darth Revan team, and really just kind of take a beating, can gain stacking health, can also give tenacity up to herself and counter and such. So L3 in this team with CLS is pretty solid, and obviously L3 with GTR is not going to work, so you can always try L3 with the CLS lineup instead. And hey, Visas Mar actually has a use in Arena, how about that? You can actually use Visas Mar in Arena to defeat a Sith team. You haven't really heard about that much very often, and that's just because she just wasn't that good, but if you can keep her debuffed, but if you can prevent her from getting debuffs on her, she can assist and cleanse, and that's going to be really helpful for your team, and she can also revive if she has to. Now we're getting here close to the end of the video, and one of the final teams to cover is a Jango Fett Bounty Hunter team. Now the Jango Fett does prevent bonus turn meter gains while your enemies are burning, and that will help counter any kind of Sith Assassin turn meter boosts. And also, the fact that they constantly stack ferocity on the enemy team is a dispellable debuff, which means the execute from Boba Fett will hit like a truck, and if you kill someone with execute, they can no longer revive. Same if you kill someone with Jango Fett's basic. But on top of that, Bounty Hunter's Resolve, that allows you to ignore taunting characters, also gives you a free revive, so you can ignore characters like Sith Trooper and Darth Scion and go straight for enemies like Darth Revan or Fallen Bastila. But also, in addition to that, you then can time things correctly, where in this clip, you get Deathmark on Jango Fett right as he gets damage immunity, and they're forced to attack Jango over and over again, but he's able to shrug it off because of the undispellable damage immunity. So by the time damage immunity wears off, Deathmark is long gone, and everything's gonna be okay. You can still just keep going. So Jango Fett against Darth Revan teams, very interesting concept, especially with execute on Boba Fett. This is something where you can use those to your advantage, like with Saber Throw with Darth Vader. You can use execute here with Boba Fett and really hit some massive damage on the enemy team. And finally, the final fight I want to show you guys, we're right in the middle of a trios of Grand Arena, and this team won 3 times in a row actually in testing. It is simply a Qi'ra lead with Enfys Nest. Now, the usual modding people have on Enfys Nest is a high tenacity build to help counter the Jedi Revans. That is not the build you want to go for here. You actually want to go for a high offensive build, which sounds kind of surprising, but I'm showing a screenshot here of the mods we were running on Enfys Nest at the time. As you can see, pretty manageable, and you want to go for these kinds of stats and just let Enfys Nest go. We pretty much ran these teams on auto, won 3 times in a row, and it it took quite a while, but eventually the damage builds up with Enfys Nest, and she gets to the point where she is one-shotting the enemy team. She is going to get stunned, feared, and controlled a lot, but eventually she's going to be able to hit, and when she hits, she's going to hit like a truck, and it's going to kill the enemy team. So this team, it's interesting. It's only 2 characters, so it would also give you a point for an undersized team in Grand Arena, but the fact that you can easily take out a trio Darth Revan team, I would have to say this is a pretty hard counter to those trio teams, but really, as long as you mod Enfys Nest correctly, and you just kind of take your time and let things play out, you should be able to kill that trio team pretty easily. And of course, the protection regen with the Qi'ra lead, who is of course gone at this point, but Enfys Nest is constantly going to regenerate some bonus protection as well, because she's landing so many critical hits. So yeah, Enfys Nest under that Qi'ra lead with an offensive mod set on her, that is going to be a go-to method for killing those Darth Revan trios in Grand Arena. So that's going to be it for this video, guys. A big thank you to absolutely everyone who sent me counter footage. Drayton, Turbo Joe, Jackson, NVR24, Eric, Falcons. I'm sure there's people I'm missing here. There's a lot of people who sent me footage for this, and a big thank you to all of you guys for doing this testing. Did a lot of testing. We've seen a lot of team compositions work and fail, so there is a lot of stuff to see out there still. Let me know down in the comments, what teams are you guys using to counter Revan? What teams have you guys found that aren't listed here in the video? As always, guys, thank you all so much for watching, and I will talk to you guys later.